Okay, so it's Colin Edwin here from O.R.k, and we've got a new album called Screamnasium, and I'm chatting to Chris.
Beautiful, mate. Thanks for joining us tonight.
That's great.
All right, so O.R.k released your fourth album, Screamnasium, last month, mate. So how's the early reception been for it?
Actually, it's been amazing. I mean, it's been our best received album so far. Loads of great comments from people that have picked up the album early. Some really positive reviews. I'm really happy, and a couple of things that have been quite touching as well. Somebody described it as soul medicine, which
Oh, wow. Nice.
I really enjoy. I really enjoyed that description.
Yeah,
No, it's been really, really well received. I'm really happy.
cool. So what goals did you have actually going into the album, mate? And if you had any, did you manage to achieve them?
I think, yeah, definitely. We were really happy with Ramagehead, which was our previous album.
Yep.
And I felt it was going to be really tough to better that, it was a tough album to, you don't want to do something that isn't as strong as what you've done before.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt a bit like, I mean, we wanted to do another record, but are we going to be able to, to bring it all down and make it happen and make it as solid as the previous one? And I think we did it. We achieved that. It's sonically better. It's more direct. It's got more emotion in it. It's an album that I'd say it's our best one. And I also think it's like the album we've been trying to make since we first started. If that makes sense, it's like everybody's really at their sort of peak, creatively.
Yeah. So on that matter, mate, like I'll skip forward a few questions. Like you said that it is the album that you've been wanting to make all along. So what can you go in a bit more detail about that?
Yeah, I think it's more emotionally direct, and it expresses things better. It's more articulate, I mean, there's a few things on there that were, in terms of the songs and the meanings of the songs, they're kind of, to me, they're quite personal, but they're quite important things to say. Like, for example, the track "Don't Call Me a Joke," which was our second single. It's kind of a bit throwaway. When we wrote it, it felt a bit of a throwaway kind of feel-good song. But, when we thought about it, I said it should be a single because it's something that people don't express. It's about empathy. And that's something that's really missing from the world. It's like the world's gone backwards in the last few years, and it's something positive, and I felt it was really important to express that. It's all about recognizing that we're all together, we're all one thing, and it's a sort of togetherness, inclusivity message, but I didn't want it to be preachy.
Yeah.
So for me, having things like that, having songs like that, were important to have, and they're kind of difficult to express. So I hope the meanings come out, but for that reason, it's an important record for me anyway, and I think for us as well. I think we all felt the same. It felt, there's a word that I keep using, which is catharsis, which is when you let something out and you feel clean afterwards. And hey, that's what the album is for me, and I think some people have said that to me. The guy that said it was soul medicine, that was, it makes me feel like we hit the mark.
You pick up a good point there too, mate. Like the difference between being preachy in a song and just sort of like being all inclusive and having a message. Like, how hard is it to draw the line with that? And like, how do you know when you've gone too far?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you don't really.
Yeah.
You have to sort of, it's a sort of judgment thing. I mean, it was quite spontaneous, that song as well. So I think perhaps there was a case to, that the meaning became more apparent when we thought about it as well, when we sort of sat back and gave a bit of space to it. And also, I mean, there's another song, the Hope for the Ordinary song. That was a really meaningful one for me, because this idea of something being ordinary and therefore being not worth it, or being less, for me, ordinary now, after the last few years, I love it.
True, right? Give me more.
You know what I mean? Let's have more ordinary. It's okay to be ordinary. So that was a hopeful song. We wanted to express that as well. Don't worry about it. Just kind of enjoy what you've got and don't take it for granted.
Yeah. And the artwork for the album was handled by Marvel DC Comics illustrator Dennis Roddier, mate. So run us through why you actually used him and what he contributed to the artwork.
Well, actually, the imagery was done by Adam Jones, who you might know as the guitar player from Tool.
Oh, yeah.
And he's also, I mean, not a lot of people know this, but he comes from a background of working in the movies, I think, in LA, and doing props and being an artist. You know, he was originally, I think, an artist. And I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe he won a Grammy for one of the Tool albums for doing the artwork for that. Yeah. So we asked Adam, well, Adam did the Ramagehead artwork, the previous album. And that was something that we just all instantly loved as soon as we saw it and thought it fit really well. So we were hoping that Adam would come up with something new for the as it was untitled. We just gave him the Screamnasium title without knowing we were going to use it. I mean, there was a few titles, but that was the top one we had, and it turned out that was his favorite title, and it ended up being ours as well. So, but Dennis is a fantastic designer. So he sort of took Adam's imagery, which is actually in the form of an animation, but a really high-res animation, and he's taken some aspects of that animation and basically made the package using the imagery. But both of them have done a fantastic job. I mean, it's always a good sign to me when a band gets really creative people around it that want to contribute and want to do something. So in the case of Screamnasium and Ramagehead, because we had the same two guys, they did the same job on Ramagehead together. It's a great sign, you know, because you're attracting people that are wanting to contribute in a really meaningful way, and they're both fantastic at what they do.
Cool. And you've also got our Grammy Award-winning vocalist Alyssa, who's probably better known for a song with Ennio Morricone on the Django Unchained soundtrack, but she's on the track Consequence for You. So you only have to listen to that song to know why she's there, mate. But what did she actually bring to the song?
Well, she's, I have to confess, I didn't know, she came from a contact in the film industry because Lef does a lot of soundtracks as well. And he'd been looking, he said to me, after we'd written the song and written the lyrics, he said to me, I really want a female voice to sing with, and I can't think of anybody. And he'd asked me, and we banded a few names around, and then somebody in one of his contacts in the film industry recommended Elisa, and of course I didn't know who she was because she's huge in Italy, but I only knew that Django thing, you know, Django Unchained from the movie. It's a beautiful song, and I sort of couldn't really hear it because it's a very different vibe. You can hear she's a marvelous singer, but it's such a different vibe. But anyway, you have to try with these things, you know. And she was really positive about the music, really positive about the song, and I think she's been perfect. You know, I mean, she's there's a sort of goosebump moment, I think, when she sings, you know, in there for me. Yeah. She really brings a lot of emotion to the song, and that's exactly what we were searching for. So she was a perfect guest, really.
Yeah, I think too, like from like my perspective, you know, like you see albums come out these days and pretty much every second one has got collaborations with people on there, and half the time you just sort of like, oh shit, here we go, another collab. But when this one came on, I actually sat up and took notice. Like she makes a difference to the song.
Yeah, definitely. She it could have been written for her, I think, you know, I think that sometimes when people get asked to do things, they listen to it and they think, is it a good context for me? And I think maybe, well, she must have felt that because she doesn't need to come and sing with O.R.k. She's a huge star, you know. So she was really positive about the music, about the song, and everything else. And it was great to have her. I'm hoping we can, you know, when we play in Italy, maybe she'll come and join us. But you know, that's a who knows? Who knows?
And the album closes with Someone Waits To, which features virtuoso cellist Joe Quayle. So it's an interesting choice of last song, mate. Why did you go with that?
I think it's the most kind of serious sort of song on the record, and it definitely felt like a closure. It's interesting when you try and do the running order. I couldn't conceive that song coming anywhere else in the order of the record. You know, it felt perfect to me to have that one at the end, and Lef agreed with me. And Jo Quayle, I mean, she's marvelous. I don't know how familiar you are with her, but she's a fantastic cello player. But she spans everything from metal to improv to classical. She's a really great musician and very, very intuitive. So she's done some crazy experimental music. There's an album she did with the percussionist from Einstürzende Neubauten, the German industrial band. And then she's done, you know, metal stuff. She's done orchestrations for big classical ensembles. And she's so easy to work with. And it ended up being a great feature for her as well. I think she's, in the same way that Elisa's really made Consequence something special, Jo's really done justice to that song, you know, and kind of made it her own in a way. But yeah, it's a serious kind of song. At the end of the day, it's the heavy one. It deals about, you know, it's about when people leave us and what they leave behind. That's that, and that became apparent after another one. After we'd written the song and the lyrics and everything else, you know, we all had this moment where we sort of remembered people that, you know, had passed over in the period since we last made records, and how it's just come out, you know, like that. So it was that's another one that's really meaningful for me.
Screamnasium is your fourth album, mate. So how would you say O.R.k's sound has grown or improved like over those 4 albums?
Yeah, it's difficult because you never know when you're in it, you know? Like, I was really happy with the first record, which I still like. But of course, when you listen back to it, you start hearing all the flaws. And, you know, you'd listen back to something and think, well, I do it differently now, you know? But it's part of the artistic process, really, that you have to let something go. And for me now, if I was happy with something at the time, I'm happy for it, you know, years later, even if I think it's a bit embarrassing now, or, you know, not embarrassing, but, you know, I would not do it now, or I'd do it differently or whatever. You have to just let it go. But we've definitely grown together as a band. You know, we have toured a lot together, and we developed a lot of sort of creative trust with each other, I think. So, you know, by necessity, we had to record remotely. But it didn't matter. It felt like we were all in the same room, to be honest. You know, we're happy to make decisions. We're still making decisions together. We're still agreeing with each other. We're still on the same page, and we're still having fun.
And not so much more.
Yeah.
All right, Colin. Well, thanks very much for your time today, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Screamnasium is out now, and she's a cracker of a record, brother. Well done. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Chris.
All right, brother. Have yourself a good afternoon.